And good evening and welcome to episode 26 of the Vegan Hour, and I am joined tonight by scientific advisor Scott Wallace. Welcome aboard, my friend. How are you, mate? This is Tuesday, July the 25th, and the Vegan Hour, in case you're not aware, is sponsored in the background there by Vegan Frothers and Burley Town Storage. And tonight, I'm just going to, whilst you guys are coming online, I'm going to go through the events that are coming up this weekend. So let's, okay, people are starting to wake up. That's good. Let's have a look what's coming up. This Friday night in Brisbane at 6:30 p.m. at the Albion Peace Centre is the Vegetarian and Vegan Society of Queensland's Vegan Food Tips and Tasting. That's a mouthful, but I'll provide a link to that later. That's only $10 for that. So you want to get along with that. That's actually food tasting. There's food preparation, food tips, anything to do with food. So get along with that this Friday. This Saturday, Love Child Vegan Markets. Have you been to Love Child Vegan Markets?
No, I missed out on them. So
well, if you're free this Saturday, they're on at 10 a.m. at Mermaid here, just up the road here at Love Child Place. And definitely recommend you get in there early because the food is very, very popular and there tends to be long lines. So get in there early for that one. And we're going to have great weekend weather for it. And Sunday, only a couple more events to go through. Sunday, we've got the Animal Liberation Queensland Vegan Bake Sale at 10 a.m. at the Green Edge in Brisbane. So go along and support Animal Liberation Queensland. And at 2 p.m, if you're on the Gold Coast, there's another Cube of Truth in Surfers Paradise. So you can go along and do some street activism and help the animals that way. Also, one final thing I want to do is I want to do a shout out to Cerebar. Have you been to Cerebar?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Oh, delicious. I brought my father there about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked that they're going vegan. I think this week.
This Friday. Cerebar, you guys rock. You're going 100% vegan.
That's it.
And you are yet another establishment that is showing that there's no excuses for having the dairy products in that. You can go 100% vegan and your customers will support you. There's a fantastic vegan community. So I see some little messages coming up there. I better start reading them. I'm waffling on too much. So let's refresh the browser here and we'll see what we've got. Annalise says, hi Scott and Harry.
Hey Sarah.
And we've got Sarah says, hey Scott. Well, there you go. You've got your fan club there, have you?
Yeah, I suppose.
That's good.
Shout out to Team Nunda, all the roommates watching.
Okay, so tonight, what we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about tonight? We're going to be not only talking about your own personal vegan journey, but we're actually going to be talking about the environment and how it relates in with veganism. And also that you're coming from the angle of being environmentally aware and being a science-based person, and you've been lecturing about that. So we're going to be talking about this angle, which I don't think is an angle that we've really had on the show, this sort of discussion on the show before. So let's start off, for those that don't know who Scott is, let's start off with who you are and how you became vegan. Let's go with that.
So at the moment, I'm studying law degree at Griffith University on the Gold Coast. And my background is in a Bachelor of Science, where I did my honours in marine ecology, and I studied ecotourism as well. So I've been at uni for a while now, but I'm just thirsty for knowledge and to be able to understand what's happening around the world and equip myself to, affect change. I went vegan April of 2015, and the final catalyst for me was Cowspiracy. Going through studying environmental science, looking at greenhouse gases, looking at climate change, looking at, what are the environmental concerns happening around the planet. No mention of animal agriculture. So in 4 years of studying sustainability, global environment, conservation, a term animal agriculture was not mentioned once. So this is extremely concerning.
In 4 years.
In 4 years.
Wow.
And so going through my studies, the common theme, I think, for most people is having that disconnection between animals and between the effects that their choices have on the planet. So for me, being able to understand the theory of marine life and animals and then spending time with them underwater, and watching documentaries about them. And also my other relationship with animals largely revolved around the animals being on my plate for a very, very long time. So up until my early 20s, that's when I decided to go vegetarian. And I thought I want to cut down my consumption and minimize my footprint and do my bit for the animals. And after maybe a year or so of looking into some more research, it became overwhelming that, hey, it's really, if we want to do our bit for the animals, it's not only taking that step towards vegetarianism, but we can look at going, well, vegan's actually the what we can do to minimize our footprint.
Not only to minimise it, but it is the minimum that we should be doing, isn't it?
That's right, for sure. And my partner Caitlin describes it in a very interesting way. If we picture a river, and on one side of the river we've got carnism, which is this ideology and belief system which conditions us to eat certain animals. We've got carnism on one side, and on the other side of this river we've got veganism, the two polar opposites. And for a lot of people, they get on the bridge over towards veganism, and that bridge can be considered vegetarianism. And we get on the bridge thinking, well, this is the end goal, this is where we need to be. So I was on that bridge only for a year, until I did some more research and found out that, hey, the truth is, the quickest, cheapest way for someone to minimize their ecological footprint is to go vegan, is to go plant-based and minimize our impact. So I had that disconnection between, wildlife and myself for many, many years,
looking
and studying this stuff, and then going for a dive, spending time with sea life, being connected to it, and then getting on land, and then paying someone to slaughter a fish, or doing it myself, spear fishing, and we don't want to make those connections because we don't want to think about our choices.
So looking back, do you sort of shake head and go, how did I not know this?
Of course. And it's like, why, people that love animals, it's like, why are they still eating animals? Why are they conservationists and ecologists still eating what they profess to love? And for me, that was like, I love the environment, I love the ocean, but if I'm exploiting it, and if I'm consuming it not out of necessity, but out of, for taste, convenience, or my culture, it's they're not decent justifications.
That's really exactly right.
So I was in a tricky space because you wanted to act in alignment and be an environmentalist, but truth is, if you want to be an environmentalist, you've got to tackle your diet for the first thing.
This is exactly right, and this is what you're starting to preach. You've been lecturing, you've been talking at schools, and at least at one EcoFest.
Two now.
Exactly. I want to ask you a bit about that. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that is watching from South Africa, because we've had a few comments come in there. They're quite a popular South African audience.
Hey, Margie, Colin.
And also everyone else that said hello and even sent little kisses. That's wonderful. And Annalise says that Cowspiracy was also her inspiration to go vegan.
Definitely. I cried myself to sleep after watching Cowspiracy because it became overwhelming that all my efforts for years and years and years really weren't effective as I thought they were. And it's about acknowledging that.
So let's take a step back then. Pre-vegan.
Yes.
What were the efforts that you thought were effective in helping environmentally in that?
Okay, having shorter showers for starters.
I wondered if you would go there. I mean, that's what they always bring up. That's
what it is. For me, the most important.
You know how long it takes me to wash my hair? Oh, damn, I've made a hair reference. We got 10 minutes in the show.
The most important thing for me in being, a conservationist, marine biologist, was to eat the sustainable sea life.
Eat the sustainable sea life. Yes.
Because I wanted to have the dolphin-friendly products. I wanted to have the stuff with minimal bycatch, and I spend days researching which brand is the best for my consumption, because we want to feel good about our choices, that we're doing the right thing.
I think,
and it's just consumer conscience appeal. So
I think is it Cowspiracy where they interview somebody that says the only way to help the marine life is to actually eat it? Is it Cowspiracy where that comes from? I think I'd
be surprised.
Yeah, yeah, it's just, and I just like, what?
One,
So, yeah, how do you help the reduction of fish by eating them? That reduces them more.
that's the most practical thing I should have been told during my studies. If you care about the ocean, stop eating them alive.
Yes.
And the crazy thing is, so globally, the fish stocks around the world, they are absolutely depleted. So over 75% of our ocean's fisheries are either fully exploited, overexploited, or depleted. That's concerning. Now, yes, there's some dodgy fishing technologies, and yes, we've got some unregulated areas, but ultimately what's causing and driving the destruction is our demand. It's supply and demand. We're paying for products, which and so I didn't want to be a part of that big system, so I ate sustainable seafood.
As Brady says, it's all marketing by the industry. And of course it is, isn't it? Because they've got a product to sell, so they're going to make their product seem like it's environmentally okay and it's healthy for you, and all the rest of the rubbish. And it's the same with any of the other animal industries. It's the same thing, you know.
It's about keeping people comfortable with their exploitation and consumption, and not pushing them to challenge that, which is what we need.
Yes. So okay. So this is where you found yourself in an area by doing these studies. Just to be clear, what's your qualification now?
So I've got a Bachelor of Science with honours.
Okay, Bachelor of Science with honours.
I'm currently studying a graduate entry Bachelor of Laws.
Okay. So a message come up there from Jordan. Let me just move it so I can read it a bit better. One moment. Okay. Such a strong message to a world where so many are inspired to change the world around them, yet hesitant to look at their own daily actions. And that's a really relevant point. And this is what it's been for you personally too, isn't it? It's you've looked at yourself and gone, well, hang on. It starts with me.
That's right. Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Exactly. A big shout out to Gandhi if you're watching.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. I don't think he's tuned in.
You're
rock, man.
So it's about and I think most people go through that realization of these are my values, these are my actions, and we try to match our values according to our existing actions, which for most people, for a long time, it's been exploitation and causing suffering.
Yes.
We've got to start the other way around. What do we believe in? What are our values? And match our actions to that. And for me, a way to act with integrity as an environmentalist was to do as much as I can. And once we know, I think we are obliged to take action and we're responsible. Those who are aware need to take responsibility.
I will second. I think that's a very well said, that we are obliged to take action. I think it's otherwise we're shitting in our own nest, and things are going like this environmentally. So it's like how long can we keep our head in the sand?
Yeah. And with those, as someone mentioned earlier, I think it was marketing by industry. Brady Hughes, or marketing by industry. They want to keep people consuming. They want to keep people comfortable with what they are doing.
Yeah.
And that's like, and by saying, we want to, sign this petition to lobby government to change a law or something, that takes all responsibility off us, puts it onto the government, and then it's like, then that's it. My duties are done. I'll sign a petition, but things that actually require people to change their consumption.
Yes, and which can be done in a second. Can be done just like that.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it can be done.
That's right, and that's the real change happening there. Michelle says, sadly, many people I know don't want to open their eyes to the truth. Michelle, that is true. I would say worry about the ones that do want to know, and then concentrate on them. That's and the ones that don't want to know, maybe somewhere down the track they'll wake up a bit. Hillary asks, did you become vegan for the environment?
Hillary, yes. So that was my main driver towards going vegan initially. It was to minimize my environmental footprint. Now, what I've realized, people will become vegan for a whole variety of reasons. It could be for their health. It could be for the animals, for just elevated consciousness and awareness of this planet and less suffering. Or for me, it was the environment. But what I've realized, once we get to that state of living and following the vegan philosophy, which the diet is a component of that, then we realize we're actually having a positive, beneficial effect on our health, for the animals, for all these other issues. So Whatever the main driver is for people, they can be selfish. If it's just, oh, I just want to go vegan for my health, that's fine. Use that to get there. And there's a plethora of benefits once you go vegan. So
second
you don't even need to care about them.
Jeez. But that's right. There's so many side effects that are positive. Michelle, and good evening, Michelle. Thank you for watching. She says, thank God for people like you guys and people with hair. No, she didn't say that. And all the vegans, all the vegans out there. You should have heard the conversation we had before we started recording about his hair. It went on for hours. And all the vegans out there who care. Thank you, Michelle.
Just before I forget, obviously people have a whole variety of catalysts and things that will get them through, the transition to veganism. But we've got to understand that when we share information with people and we give them the facts, that generally won't suffice. That's not enough to convince people to take action. So I did a course which was run by Monash University. For anyone who's interested, it's called the Green Steps program. And Green Steps is all about creating sustainability change agents. And they run you through the full process from awareness and becoming aware and having knowledge of the issue to actually affecting behavioral change and tackling social change. So there's all these little links between that, and just facts is the sort of start. Awareness is the start. You've got to find out what's going to drive someone to make that decision, whether it's financial, whether it's health, whether it's environmental.
This is quite. I find this quite interesting. Did they actually sort of go into detail of how you would affect that change then with the person?
So in terms of understanding psychology, in terms of tackling the corporate sector, how do we get into businesses and say, we want to put in a program for minimizing electricity or water usage and auditing a company or a corporation and saying, this is how we can change things, and using them to sort of push it and direct the motivation to do that. So
see, that must be more difficult to try and change a corporation because you're dealing with an entity that's sort of, it's not personal.
Although corporations are considered legal persons, they have more rights than us as humans and citizens of every nation.
That's interesting.
And we've created this right for them.
That's interesting. And behind a corporation, I mean, it is a group of people. So you're still reaching someone, aren't you? But they're probably bound by certain laws that they're working within, or certain restrictions within the corporation or something as to what they can do and can't do. So I should imagine when you're trying to reach somebody, when you're giving them information on a personal level, it must be a lot easier to reach somebody in the street or something, and convince them to make the change. But what you've said there is the person has to actually make the change themselves. Of course, it has to come from you can't force it upon them.
That's right. And the most powerful decision we make is the decision we make. That we choose that this is what I'm going to do, not feel like it's been imposed or it's pressured on us.
So how do you get from that? How do you get from the facts? And saying, okay, this is the way it is. Things are pretty bad. They're going to affect your health. They're affecting the animals, affecting the environment. I've shown it all to you now. What are you going to do? How do you get from that to the person going, okay, I'm going to do something better?
That's those links in that chain. So it may be
it's pretty
identifying the drivers, what's going to motivate someone to make those changes, and that comes down to understanding them, their story, who they are, what they're interested in, to tailor your approach for them. But every documentary, every bit of information we share with people is invaluable, because it's all going to contribute to this broader picture and sharing, just building up a case for them. But that it varies for everyone. How do you, in an ideal world, as James Aspey says, in the ideal world, I just say this is the issue, this is what we can do about it. Cool, and then people make the change. But it doesn't happen like that. So,
no, but see, it's people like yourself that are actually going out there with different angles, like you're going out there with the environmental angle and making people aware from that angle, so that if they're not interested in say animal rights, maybe they might be more interested in what's happening to the world around them, because there are people who fit in that category. Definitely. There's Jordan makes a good comment there. The corporations are powered by consumers,
of course.
So if you hit them at that level,
where's the responsibility? That's right. It's on us.
That's exactly right. And Hillary asked a quick question there. What was my trigger or reason to become vegan? And for me, it was health. So, and that was a long time ago, and all my hair fell out after that. No, it's not true. We can't go stop doing this. I'm secretly jealous of this guy's hair. I mean, how can you not be? I mean, his hair entered the room 2 minutes before he did. It's amazing. It's got its own postcode. I mean, it's incredible. Anyway, I mean, it's enough of that. So, okay. Now you've been today. Well, we'll get a little bit later. We'll get on to talk about what some of the fantastic things that happened here today.
Yeah.
But in recent times, you've been talking at schools. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Which is. So let's talk about that. What is the what are you talking about? And what is the, how does it work when you're talking to schools?
Sure. So I think it's quite a privilege to be able to engage with any group of people and, be able to share my understanding and knowledge with people and, help them and empower them and inspire them to make changes and help them be informed. So the first presentation I did was a few years ago to a Victoria Point Senior High School, State High School, SHS, whatever it is.
Okay.
And that was
State High School, yeah.
That opportunity came around because that school came to where I'm employed up at North Stradbroke Island. So I work for University of Queensland at the research station over Australia as a science camp educator and tutor.
Okay.
And so one of the groups we had was their teacher was interested in what I do outside of work and some of the volunteering. He said, come to the school and chat to us about what you do.
Okay.
And so that was back in 2015. And then the start of this year, I actually took a subject which was credit pointed in the law program, which was called Environmental Advocacy Clinic, Environmental and Social Advocacy Clinic. So what this was, it gave people an opportunity to actually do some advocacy and create some content and lobby politicians or contribute to research on an issue that's of concern to us. So naturally, veganism, animal agriculture, you can always tailor what your interests are or any assessment at uni as much as you can towards veganism, animal rights, anything like that.
Good. Yeah.
And so that program, I needed to get in touch with high schools because I wanted to contribute to community knowledge as my criteria. And so using the university assessment as a solid basis to say, here's a credit pointed course, I'm going in, and these are my intentions, these are my content. Are you interested in having me complete my assessment with your students? This is the Queensland curriculum. This is where my stuff matches up. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
And I did my first presentation to Southport State High School, which I went to high school at Southport State High School.
Funny
and
how
then
works,
I presented to two other groups up at Stradbroke, which was Australian Islamic College, which was awesome. Such a receptive group of students. And then another university group. So that was the bare minimum for my assessment. And some of the content I run them through is, firstly highlighting the environmental effects of the animal agriculture industry and saying what are some of the solutions. And what people are surprised to hear is that the United Nations has advocated for a global urgent shift towards a plant-based diet. Go read the report, it's there. So this is...
But that was last year, wasn't it, I think?
Very recently, yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's, this is such a huge institution saying this is what we need to do to address this issue. We don't hear about this, the governments don't pass this information on to us at all.
No.
And so hopefully I can go in and inspire these young change agents with some of the facts and then bring in veganism, talk about the philosophy, talk about carnism as to this is the struggles we're going to face making these shifts in our consumption because there's institutionalized carnism. We've got everything operating against us to keep us disconnected. As long as we're disconnected, we're going to be paying people to slaughter animals that we would otherwise be hugging.
I like that.
So
that's got to be the quote.
Disconnection.
Paying people.
That's it.
To slaughter animals that we would otherwise be hugging.
Of course.
I like it.
And so if we're not disconnected, we're acting in alignment. But as long as we're disconnected.
And I mean, it's fairly common knowledge that to go back a step there, you were saying, that the governments are not going to sort of promote this information.
No.
Right? And of course, the reason is pretty obvious. The vested interests. Of course. And if we were talking about this before we started the show tonight, if you want to talk about vested interests, watch the help. That was a double watch. watch the help. Big comment came in there.
Hi, Joel.
And hang on, let's just go. Mitchell says, "Can I get a link? I'd love the read."
Mitchell, was this for the UN paper?
Yeah, Mitchell, just clarify what your question is in regards to. Joel says, hey man, first off, get a haircut. I love a comment that does that. That's great. Second, where do we draw the line? Do you think it's plausible that all red-blooded humans turn vegan, given the state of most developed nations? And how long do you all think it'd take to get enough of us eating just plants to make an actual climate, human health, environmental difference? Good question. Very good question.
I do think it's plausible. We look at the rates and adoption of veganism across the world, and it's up 350% in the UK over, I think it's either 5 or 10 years.
360% apparently.
Okay,
but you're close.
Kicking off,
for a figures man, you're close.
Mainly in the developed nations where we've got access to information. And how long do you think it would take? Well, if every vegan got convinced one other person a year to go vegan, within, I think it's 15 years or less than 20 years, we could theoretically have everyone vegan in this world. So that's less than a couple of decades now.
I'll just throw in a couple of other statistics, Joel, just in relation to your question, because every year for the last 10 years in the US, meat consumption has decreased.
Okay.
So, and it's dairy, non-dairy milks are up, I can't remember the percentage, but they're up a huge amount in the US, I'm not sure about Australia, but also in the UK. So the animal industries are actually in decline, and the evidence we've got of that is you'll see now these pseudo advertisements where they come on to Good Morning Australia or something like that and tell you how wonderful milk is for you or something like that.
So
one of those.
I agree. Industry is threatened, and this is why they are pushing so hard.
Yes.
And I think we can actually make an actual, really tackle climate change and these issues quite quickly by adopting a plant-based diet, because once the consumption drops, there's less land cleared, there's less, water pollution, water use, greenhouse gas emissions. And
to go back to what Jordan said, corporations are powered by consumers, right? Once the animal need or use, there we go.
That's the link.
The link. Once it decreases, corporations go, well, if we're talking business corporations, they suddenly go, oh, geez, we need to still make money. We've got to figure out a way, and that has happened, hasn't it? With
one of the dairy corporations in the US, and they're literally too threatened by non-dairy products, and they diversified their product supply and went into plant-based. So if they can stick to their economics, I'm not concerned about people making money. When it's at the expense of the environment and they're paying people to slaughter animals, no justification there. To make your money in different ways.
Exactly.
That's it. And just going back to Joel's, plausible that all red-blooded humans turn vegan. Well, I think it's important that we apply the doctrine of necessity here. So if we look at, say, the Inuits, for example, and people that are nomadic, they don't have a choice.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, it's morally excusable. Their only choice is to consume animal products and hunt, and literally live off the land. For the rest of us, we've got supermarkets down the road, we've got choice
with so many vegan foods nowadays.
Of course, and I'm not sure about you, Harry, but I didn't stop eating animals because they didn't taste good. Animal flesh tasted good, but now with that perspective shift, I still want to have that taste without the suffering involved. So we can substitute all of our non-vegan products with vegan substitutes.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Culture, Joel, is the most challenging thing we need to tackle.
Yes.
Transformation of culture.
But to go back to what you were saying earlier in relation to this, we make the change ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we just radiate out from there. So all I think, John, all we need to worry about is just saying, okay, we're going to
start with ourselves,
and we're going to set the example, and we're just going to allow other people to sort of catch on from there.
Of course, and
which is what you're doing. You're the example. You're going to schools. You're talking to the students, and you're radiating it out to them, which is fantastic.
And they've been super receptive. So the younger generation, that's where we're seeing the adoption of veganism at its highest. It's the younger crowd. They're switched on. They've got information.
Very inspiring.
And they've had less decades of conditioning
than
someone your age. Obviously, you've gone vegan decades ago now, but our parents, the older generation, have been exposed to the same marketing, conditioning, ideology for their whole life. So that shift is so much harder to make.
It is, isn't it?
That's why we've got to get in there early.
Although to the credit of my parents, went vegetarian in their late 70s last year.
Oh, wow.
And I'm trying to get them to go vegan.
Oh,
So it is possible.
There you go. Mum and Dad, if any of you guys are watching this, please go vegan.
I just want to interrupt you there because Michael has shared the link to the UN saying in 2010 they urged a global shift to veganism. So thank you very much, Michael, for putting that link up before it disappears. Mitchell says, please never cut your hair, my man. Live, love, and share your experiences. We need rapid change so much, and that's true. We do. Linda says, I've come in late, but we'll watch from the beginning. Good info, thank you. And remember, Linda and anyone else, that all the Vegan Hour episodes are on my YouTube channel, and you can watch them at any time later on. You won't get the links, but you'll get the whole show. And Annalise says we didn't have social media. Well, that's true. Now, social media is a great driver of change because it's getting away from the vested interests, isn't it? It's actually, here's the facts. We'll share it. Yeah, exactly. We'll share this information, and it doesn't matter who we upset. Because this is what the world needs to hear. So I want to go back to you talking in the school. So you started at the Southport High School. Yes, and that was what, 2 years ago?
So that talk on animal ag and veganism was actually, maybe 3-4 months ago. Not even.
Okay.
So that was
recent.
That was the first high school presentation on animal ag, and then there was 2 other schools that I did for my assessment, and then today was another high school which was separate to assessment. So there's the schools are interested in exploring extracurricular stuff, and the information is relevant for them, and it's interesting for the students, and I get to challenge them a lot and shake up their belief systems. And I tell them at the start, that's good. What we're about to discuss may challenge the way you see the world, and that's okay.
Excellent.
Excellent. We've been in the same position you guys have been, and it's all right. Just think about these things, question everything.
I love the way you present it to them, and they're young, they're malleable. Of course, you give them the correct information, and they can take it in and then go, oh yeah, geez, we were being fed crap before.
Of course, and empower them to make decisions that align up with their beliefs. But if we're not telling them the truth, and if the governments aren't sending out information on the environment, in terms of animal ag, the environmental organisations aren't really putting in solid efforts to address this issue at all.
Yes.
The scientists aren't being trained up and qualified with this information, then how do we expect the general public to know? And this is why it's actually an institutionalized suppression of information. It's not just it's we don't know about it. Oh, I'm sure it's purposely being suppressed. Because it threatens the economy, it threatens our culture, and it does. It's going to shake things up.
It's like,
and it already is, but bring it.
It's sort of like going to a doctor who's a meat eater and asking him for health advice. It's like, what sort of advice are you going to get from this guy? He eats meat, he drinks, he smokes, whatever. It's like, why would you even go there? So it's sort of like relying on the government or whoever else to give us information that is not going to tie in with the way that they're operating. Pratul says, like slavery needed to be ended, and it happened much sooner than slave keepers ever visualized, so will end the cruelty and unnecessary pain to innocent living creatures. The momentum of human movements are very difficult to predict, as can be seen every day in market moves. That's a very well written comment, Pratul. Very well written, and interesting that what you say there. The momentum of human movements are difficult to predict. That's actually correct, because history has shown that groups of people can change direction rapidly and unpredictably, depending on the experience or the circumstance they find themselves in. I can't think of any. I can't think of anything to expand on that. Any examples of that at the moment. But that, yes. So, and what we are seeing in the last few years is this this expansion of awareness through social media, and through people now starting to go direct to
the sources of information.
But also people like yourself going direct to the students.
And
people doing the street activism and that sort of thing, and bringing that truth now to another level. It's like, okay, we're not just putting it there on Facebook. We're actually coming to you Yeah, next we'll be knocking on people's doors and going into their,
Why not?
going
How you
into
doing?
their house.
Care about the environment, care about animals,
Right, yeah, there you go. Let me sit down and no, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. Let me sit down and talk to you about that. Oh, whoops, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have gone there. Anyway, well, when they go vegan, I'll be happy. Yes. Anyway, so okay, you're finding the students are receptive.
Extremely.
Extremely receptive.
Extremely
I
receptive.
love it. What about the teachers?
The majority of them are super receptive as well. Like
Good.
to have been given an opportunity to talk about this environmental,
Yes.
ecological disaster,
Yeah.
and to say, oh, I'm talking about some of the solutions to these issues. Like they want to expose the kids to a lot of the information. They want to know themselves because it's interesting, and some of them will give me weird faces. Like I had one sentence, she was just like, "Is what you're telling me is you pulling my tail? No, this isn't true. I'm an environmentalist. I eat meat. I'm an environmentalist." That was the vibe I was getting, but it's cognitive dissonance and a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
So
it's a foot in the door, isn't it? It's really a good foot in the door by coming in from the environmental angle. It's not like a personal.
I don't only address the environmental issues with the presentation. So I'll talk about veganism. I talk about the diet component of that. Talk about the whole. I don't know if anyone's seen the diagram, but it's ego and eco.
Yes. I
think you used that in the preview.
I did use that in the promo.
If you guys want to Google just ego versus eco, it's a little diagram and it shows this pyramid. And at the top we've had men on top of this pyramid, and below that, women, and then other like cute, charismatic megafauna, and then pets and food animals and all this. And it's about moving away from that paradigm into the eco approach where things are balanced, there's respect, there's justice, and it's about shifting governance and policy and all the way to this.
That's excellent. I want to just get some big comments that are coming there before they disappear, Christine. And good evening, Christine. How are you? She says, as much as I despise religion, questioning the religious folk about their support of mistreatment could be interesting. Doesn't the Bible say we should be caring for the animals? Not sure, I never read it. And yes, it does. It does actually. And I'll make a really brief comment on my knowledge of the Bible is that if you go back to the original language that it was written in, before it was translated, you will actually see that they translated words that didn't mean meat into the words meat. So, and in different translations, sometimes the word has been translated from the original language into the word food, and other times it's been translated into the word meat. Meat meaning food, right? So, but if you want to go right back, the original quote is that in the Garden of Eden, or that is that it was vegan. We're eating fruits and vegetables and all that. And I've talked about this a few weeks ago when it came up. We were talking about the Bible. There's much more to it, but if you guys just basically, if you Google, probably maybe just Google vegan Bible quotes, and you'll get there's some good lists there, 10 good, and it's the direct Bible quotes of proving that we are meant to be vegan. And yes, so anyway, that's enough about that one. Harriet says, what do you think about consuming eggs produced by chickens of your friends and family? This is a good question that comes up from time to time. I've been vegan 2 years, but am considering consuming free-range local eggs again for the nutrients and health benefits. Interesting. It would be the only non-vegan food I would ever consider consuming. P.S. I am currently doing my teacher training in the UK, so this is all very interesting to me.
Awesome. So eggs was one of the last things that I cut from my diet.
Yeah.
And the different perspective to look at things now is, say, backyard chickens, they may not be being harmed in the process, but it's animal exploitation. We're taking a product from them, which, it's not for us, it's to maintain their life and the way they're operating.
Yes.
We're taking a product from them which the nutritional benefits are extremely questionable. Yes, there's some awesome amino acid chains in eggs. Look at the cholesterol though. Look at the effects, the negative effects of eggs.
Yes.
So if we can differentiate between harm and animal exploitation, then backyard chickens, they're being looked after, but it's still taking a product that is good for us.
It's definitely animal exploitation. It's also, it's not just questionable the health. There's enough negatives, a long shot of negatives, aside from cholesterol. I suggest if anyone wants to go on YouTube and look up Mick the Vegan, we were talking about him before the show, and maybe look for his video about egg consumption, because that was a question that came up, I think, on one of his episodes, and he talks about that, backyard chickens and that. But it's yeah, and we know what eggs actually are. Eggs is just a term for
menstruation
yes,
of a chicken.
Yes,
Take
it's
that
like
egg,
honey is another term for bee vomit.
Harriet, take that egg, put it in the toilet. Like, take the clean chicken egg, put it in the toilet. Do your pee in your toilet. Do a poop in the toilet.
I'm not sure where this is going.
Swirl it around in the toilet and take the egg out and see if you still want to eat it, because that's what happens. This is where the egg comes from. The chicken is reproducing through the cloaca. It's crapping out of the cloaca.
That's a word I can't say.
It's urinating through the cloaca.
How many times can he say that word in 1 minute?
Like, why are we eating this? We don't need to eat this. It's so odd. And, that's just... Why aren't we drinking dog's milk? Why aren't we drinking camel milk or whale milk? Exactly. Cow's milk?
But the bottom line, and you said it so spot on, is that it's animal exploitation. And it's not our right to do that.
Right. So, and in terms of rights, the animals under our legal system. I've been studying animal law recently, and under our legal system, this sort of Western, anthropocentric, very human-centered legal system, animals are just property. They're legally considered objects. They're something. They're not someone. And because they're merely objects, that's the reason why we can exploit them and use them. And like we say, some people will say, "Oh, I own a dog." If I own 3 dogs, we won't say, "I own a brother, I own a dad." Like, they're members of the family. We can relate to them. They're another sentient creature. So the property status of animals is extremely concerning, but this is why the law upholds these industries of exploitation.
Because it's not considered animal cruelty to run an animal agriculture industry.
And
until the law is changed.
Geez, so the just in Queensland, so the majority of the animal cruelty legislation in most jurisdictions in Australia and probably around the world focuses on animal welfare. So the animal welfare approach, as a philosophical approach, is that animals have the right to be treated responsibly and cared for well, treated humanely during their use, but that they don't have a right to life. Okay, so they don't see animals as having a right to life. So it's okay if we treat them well. If their throat slit at the end of the year, 2, 3, 4 years, that's acceptable, and it really isn't. And our legislation reflects that. So,
and it's a right to life. That's exactly
right to life, and that's what we need to be pushing for. So, anyone who's engaging in that welfare rights debate realizes there's a massive difference between the two. We're talking about a right to life and a right to thrive and exist and flourish, as opposed to a right to be treated humanely while we're exploiting them.
And also ask yourself, would you want it done to you? If you were a mother, would you want your babies taken away? Any of these things, just bring it back on ourselves and just say, humane slaughter or whatever. Well, who would want it done?
It's a complete oxymoron.
It is. It is. There's a few comments come up there that I wanted to get to. It's gone, but the mention there, Christine mentioned about in What the Health, they say that eggs are as bad as, I think it's 5 cigarettes or something. I haven't got more information about that, but I do recommend you watch What the Health. Brady says, a chicken lays eggs until they have a clutch. Taking each egg that they lay will make them feel they need to keep laying, but chickens make wonderful family members if you want to save some ex-battery ladies. Brady says, taking each egg. When you put the word taking in there, I mean, you're taking. I mean, is it our right to take that egg? That's. I think that answers itself. Do you want to take this one? Why is honey a no-no if the bees are not harmed?
As I said before, veganism as a philosophy does not support animal exploitation. So we don't want to consume anything or wear anything or support industries that have been derived from animal exploitation. So I don't think it's accurate either to say that bees aren't harmed. You look at some of the research out. Even talk to the farmers, and we can go through stages of fumigating hives, replenishing them, clipping the wings off the queens so they can't fly away.
Even opening and closing the hives.
Actually, there's bound to be some influence with their natural cycles.
It affects it kills some of the bees. It also takes a ridiculously long time for them to produce a small amount of honey. and then some of the beekeepers replace it with a sugar water type thing or something,
Yeah.
and it's like, again, it's bee vomit,
Yeah.
and it's
It may have some benefits for medicinal purposes.
yes, but it doesn't have
But it
any
doesn't make it
benefit.
acceptable
Doesn't have
to
any
exploit
benefit
them.
for the bee.
Of course not.
It's exploitation. It's
Yeah.
wrong. This is where the thinking has to shift, doesn't it? Because there's still. I'm not having a go against anyone's questions here because they're fantastic questions. But we need to shift the thinking away from trying to find ways of still being able to use animals.
We
it's just
don't
like
need to.
no,
We don't need
it's
to.
just,
This is the thing.
it's like no. It's like we're trying to find ways to still have slavery or something of humans. It's like no,
and that's
it's wrong.
We want when it came to human slavery, as someone mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We decided to abolish human slavery because we knew this shit was wrong, morally unacceptable. So when it comes to animals' rights and exploitations, we're not going to regulate animal exploitation. Monday to Thursday is a right, and Thursday to Sunday no exploitation. We need to abolish the property status of animals, which is going to be extremely challenging, but it starts with us not considering them as property.
Yes.
And getting back to the animal laws in Queensland, the Animal Care and Protection Act is the main bit of law in our state, and the object, so the main purpose of this bit of legislation is to promote the responsible care and use of animals. So the objective of the law is to promote the use of animals. Now that law operates under the welfare philosophy, so we can use them, we can exploit animals as long as they're treated humanely. Now, the majority of the animal protection statutes, so that those laws are relevant for domestic animals.
Yes, that's right.
There's exceptions within these laws which say, it's there's a code of practice. So, for example, there's a cruelty offence, but there's an exemption to that offence if you follow your industry standard code of practice. This is how the animal agriculture sector gets away with their harm.
Yes.
Because there's a code of practice which says you can do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, which is cut their livestock's tail off, trim their teeth, castrate them, do all these things, which would be illegal if applied in a domestic context with domesticated animals. However, because they're following their code of practice, they're exempt from all the animal cruelty provisions in our laws, and this is why it's legal in one sense and it's illegal in the other, and it's just arbitrary, but the law keeps these things going. So, and
there are people working on the law, like you've got the Animal Justice Party, working to make change from that, direction. So so there are people working to try and change the law so that
this is super hard, man. Like we're talking about shifting entire global governance and the way things operate. We can't look at consumption as a little thing over here in its own world. We've got to realize the majority of the world is operating under the philosophy of ideology of carnism. It's anthropocentric, which means it's human-centered. And our laws and all these industries have favored human interests over the interests of non-humans. Okay, and the law is just one example of how we're what's the word?
Propagating that, maybe.
Propagating that, that's right. So we need to challenge.
So the change still has to come back from here, doesn't it? Because it has to be a change in the way that we regard other beings other than ourselves.
Of course.
Yeah. I want to get some comments there, Scott, because Linda says, for every female chicken born, there is an unwanted male chick who is killed, ground up alive or suffocated. That's another reason not to support the egg industry. And not only is that another reason, but that also applies to backyard chickens, because it still ties in. They don't escape that. I mean, they're not. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm getting the reasoning right, but they're a product of the industry in some regard. So it still ties in. Alex says, what does the law say about killing animals humanely when talking between cows and pigs?
Let's address this.
Are you allowed to do it legally to all animals? Good question, Alex.
Humanely. So the domestic animals, there's a high level of protection for domestic animals in terms of a duty of care towards domestic animals. And that you need to do as much as you can to not inflict, suffering and harm, make sure they're accommodated well. And the law is extremely firm on animal cruelty for domestic animals. So it's a very high standard for domestic animals. I don't think like you can just go humanely. I don't know if you can just legally kill a dog you own.
No.
Just for the
Oh, no,
sake
no,
of it.
you'd be up for animal cruelty.
charges.
Yeah. So
that's legally do it to all animals. One of the exceptions is invasive species. So, for example, the cane toad. You can legally go and kill cane toads in Queensland as long as it's done.
Yes.
As they say, there's like a reasonable amount. It's something. No, it's something like just it's petty saying. But then again, that's one of the vegan dilemmas I've faced as an ecologist is how do we deal with invasive species?
Yes.
Because two ways to look at it. Ecologically speaking, these invasive species are messing up the environment. My vegan side goes, hey, this animal has a right to life that should be respected. So I think that there may need to be, ways of bringing down their populations of these invasive species. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Maybe other people that want to do that, but striking that balance is hard.
It's actually a dilemma, that one. I don't have an answer to what. And you're not sure. You're still not sure.
Well, like look at cane toads. Good luck controlling that population.
And maybe wild foxes might be another one.
Bring down their numbers to maintain ecological integrity. But that's killing animals, and
that's right.
Vegans need to do it. There can be
they talk about. Where you are on Stradbroke, they have a dingo problem there, or
not on Straddy. I think that's Fraser Island.
Fraser Island's got and that's another thing where they've talked about controlling that. And then you've got the kangaroos as well as another thing where they talk about culling. They don't use the word killing because that'd be too obvious. So it's culling,
that's right?
But that is a dilemma, that one, because we need to respect, as we're saying, the rights of all life to live. And I guess we could maybe go back a step and say, well, okay, why are they causing the issue to other industries that shouldn't be existing in any case? Maybe that's...
We've tampered so much with the environment.
Yes.
And we need to be doing as much as we can to return things to the pure state, which is extremely challenging to do, but we've got to start.
One of the things about being vegan is trying to do the best that we can in the situation we're in. It doesn't mean perfectionism, but it does mean trying to do the best we can to respect the rights of all living beings to live. There's a couple of more comments that come up there, just going back to the backyard chickens. Tracy asked, what if you have your own backyard chickens and only eat what they don't sit on? And Brady actually replied, feed the eggs back to them, Tracy. The shell is high in calcium and quite good for them. Not so healthy for humans, though. Yes. Again, just from a health perspective, I wouldn't go within 1,000 miles of an egg. When you Google it, when you do some research on it, you just go, oh. So just from that, even without the ethical perspective, it's just But again, it's exploitation. So we need to get away from that. So I feel like I can't believe how quick the time has gone tonight. 22. And I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of some of the stuff we want to talk about. You had a very interesting meeting today.
This morning.
Yes.
Which was excellent. So I managed to get connected and introduced to a fellow called Martin Taylor, who is the Protected Areas and Conservation Science Manager of WWF in Brisbane. And his World Wildlife Fund. Trying to get that one right, World Wildlife Fund. And he's doing some wonderful work in terms of highlighting the impacts of the animal agriculture industry, focusing on starting to look at the animal welfare side of things with the land clearing, and also sharing information and getting it out to the public as to how destructive this industry is. And there is a suppression of information. One of the challenges that environmental organisations do face, not just WWF, Greenpeace, all of these, and I've spoken to the CEO of Greenpeace Asia Pacific twice now, and also the CEO of Australian Conservation Foundation, and if the true state is the animal agriculture industry is the single most destructive industry on our planet. The same goes in Australia. We're looking at 56% of our total land use is just used for grazing animals in this country. Okay.
Wow.
They are reluctant to give the facts to people because eventually it comes down to, hey, we need to actually tackle our own consumption and not just make the government try to change laws and policies. So they're trying to operate through like a shotgun approach to get the most people on board with an environmental issue, but they usually adopt reduce your consumption
approach. Yeah,
but we need to really be acting with integrity and tell
Yes.
people this is the true state of things, empower them to make a decision. Everyone's going to have their space along the spectrum.
Yeah.
So some are going to be, very minimalistic and incrementalist in their approach, and they don't want to shake things up too much. And other people are just going to go for it and be blunt, brutal, and honest with people.
So the question is, why don't they want to shake things up? Is that because they're a corporation that doesn't want to be affected? They don't want their supply of money coming in affected.
You can look at it in that way. So my personal understanding is that they are dependent on a membership base for funding and for support. And if they were to turn around and tell people, hey, go vegan if you want to be an environmentalist, I think they'd initially lose a lot of support, but they would gain integrity with their message.
And I love that you're using the word integrity,
because it's about acting in alignment, telling people this is the way things are. But they're in a sticky situation. They need funding coming through, and they need to just be make things palatable for people.
But in a way, a corporation that ends up like that, or an entity that ends up like that, has basically sold its soul like an individual has when they know what's the right thing to do, but they're doing the wrong thing, and they feel it inside. That's just it on a bigger level, isn't
it? They're trying to get the most people on board through incremental steps, and that's not going to be my space that I'm going to operate in. I'm interesting to delve into policy, but it's about tackling from the bottom up as well with people, empowering people to make those decisions, and it's just integrity. That's what it comes down to.
So I love hearing the word integrity. I can't hear it enough. It's a fantastic word. Integrity and credibility, I think, are two really good, and authenticity, all very good words. Tracy, just to finish off about the chickens, Tracy said she doesn't eat eggs, but her family do. And it occurred to me when I read that really what that comes down to is, like your family's case, they might be looking for reasons to justify their taste addiction. And I think that's what, and we just taste addiction,
convenience, culture. Those are the main reasons we exploit animals.
And
not good enough.
They're not good enough, are they? If the thing that you go, oh yeah, but can't we eat it this way, or can't we do it? If it tasted horrible to you, would you be fighting for all these different reasons to come up with it? Oh no, I can get it from here, and it's like, no, you wouldn't be. You're going like, no, this tastes like crap. I'm not interested in it. That's a thing. It's a very selfish, self-centered reason to be coming up with justifications to keep exploiting animals, when the only real reason, if we really want to get it, is the fact that we still like the taste of it.
That's right.
You mentioned earlier in your own journey, you like the taste of meat before, right? And that's what's pushing people forward. It's like, well, we like it. Well, can't we lab grow meat or something so that it's like, but you've got to
go vegan.
Exactly. Thank you.
Don't need flesh and blood.
Two words.
We don't need to.
Go vegan. We don't need to.
Talking about integrity, just an example of how an environmental group can strike the balance is Sea Shepherd. So they're a marine conservation group.
Yes.
You don't need to be vegan to be a volunteer. However, if you jump on a campaign with them and go offshore, it's vegan food they're serving.
That's right.
Between 1/3 to 40% of all the fish that are caught in the oceans are funneled and fed to the livestock sector. So if we're eating meat, we are literally eating the oceans as well.
Wow.
So Sea Shepherd go, hey, yes, we're not going to be a strictly vegan group. We can do vegan events. We can promote veganism through our conduct. But and that's a way to act in alignment. Concern about the ocean, but also concern about other animals and other ecosystems. And it's not hard to be concerned about them and take action.
So I want to ask one question there. So they don't consider Sea Shepherd don't consider themselves a vegan organisation?
I don't think strictly, but the founder, Paul Watson, he had Sea Shepherd as a vegetarian organisation for a long time, and then went vegan. I think it was the start of 2000s.
Okay.
And they will, it's not an outright vegan group, but got some vegan sort of policies weaved in there for their volunteers.
It would be. I think it would be better if they did push that side of it harder. But I get what you're saying earlier too, that there's a fear in these groups of doing that, because people are hearing the V word and they might run screaming, and maybe the message won't be reached them at all.
And it's because it's considered extreme. And the reason it's considered extreme is because the majority of the world is their actions is extreme.
Exactly.
And we're conditioned to think that this is extreme.
Yes.
But C-Shep, you know, they tackle issues where there's a lack of enforcement in international law. But the issue isn't the illegal and unregulated things on this planet. It's the things that are legal, that are sanctioned by the state, that the governments go, this is legal. And that's the concerning things. Environmental laws are weak. They just legalize our exploitation and destruction of the environment. That's what they're doing.
So I'm going to have to start wrapping this up. Where to now for you?
Where to now?
Yeah, where to now?
So,
I mean, world domination? No.
So one of my area of interest is it's a theory of Earth jurisprudence, and it's an ecological theory of law that will resonate with any vegan out there. And that's the space I'm engaging, is bringing in ecology, bringing in law to shape policies and get people questioning the way the laws are, to reflect an Earth-centered approach to our world, and promoting veganism, doing talks, so whatever it is.
So how do you hope to achieve that Earth jurisprudence?
Yeah. There's a group called Australian Earth Laws Alliance that I've been volunteering with up here in Brisbane, and they focus on rights of nature campaigns that are happening around the world. But granting ecosystems legal personhood now. It's huge. Wow. Really big steps towards in a great direction. Yeah. So focusing some efforts in with that group and championing for the voice of nature to be heard.
I tell you what, folks, it just occurred to me that we're in good hands with people like Scott, because they are working behind the scenes and in the public eye to make a difference, to actually what people like Scott are doing is trying to help. And the way that you can help if you're watching this is get on board. Personally, you can make the change. You can decide right now. You can say, okay, you've convinced me. The environment needs my help. I'm going to be plant-based from tomorrow. You know, you can do it. It's as simple as that, right? And if you're going, oh yeah, but I crave my eggs or whatever it is, have a look in your supermarket. There are so many alternatives, and if it's not there, have a look in your health food store or wherever. There's no excuse. We're in 2017. There's an alternative for just about everything, isn't there? There really is. And it's going to be healthier for you. And you can go down the street and there's half a dozen or more vegan restaurants, you know. Everywhere. And if there's not, there's vegan options, isn't there? I want to go out with this question. What's your favourite, do you have a favourite vegan restaurant?
Oh, geez.
There's so many to choose from.
I think the $14 vegan buffet is winner vegan dinner, as opposed to winner chicken dinner. So good, but man, how many plates can you do can you do more than
2.5? 2.5? Yeah, he's a decent eater, yeah. So there's a shout out to Govinda's Surface Paradise, the only 100% vegan Govindas in the world, according to the owner. So
that's the Bolman way.
You got him ahead of me. So, my man, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Absolute pleasure. I feel like we could have gone for another hour or something. Sure. People watching, if you've got any questions that you want to ask Scott, please, you can still ask after the live stream. And this show should be on YouTube within a couple of days, depending on how well my internet goes.
I'm having issues with my Facebook page at the moment, but Harry might link it up. You can't search it on Facebook yet, but I'm just starting off on the social media activist space. So if you want to find out what's happening in that space,
we will put a link to Scott's professional page, if that's
sure. Yes.
So you can find out more information from there. And Linda comments, awesome. We need credible, articulate people like you two. Well, he was. I was just the entertainment. So thanks, everyone that's been watching. I'll mention again that we're sponsored by Vegan Frothers, who not only cruelty-free clothing, but also support with all their profits go to supporting animal charities, which is fantastic. Next week, who have I got next week? I've got another animal rights activist, Joshi Kwan. Joshi Kwan, yes. So that's the 1st of August, next Tuesday. So I look forward to everyone joining us for that. Until then, remember to live vegan and to save lives. and respect the rights of all living beings to live. Thanks for joining us, guys.
See you guys.
And good